right, y'all. This is Henos Sport bringing you that heat and that fire. The fourth and the last video. Got to get on Roy Jones Jr. All right, Roy Jones. What are you talking about here? You're sitting here running your damn mouth telling us that, let's see, Errol Spence needs to prove himself. See, this is the stuff that I'm talking about. If you don't want me to fundamentally think that you have a problem with Errol Spence and that you have some level of vitriol or hatred against him, then why aren't you saying anything in his benefactor? Why aren't you saying anything positive? Why aren't you talking about his boxing ability? Why aren't you complimenting him on anything? He doesn't do this stuff. All he does is try to nitpick what he thinks Errol Spence needs to do. And that's fundamentally a problem. And I don't understand why people can't see this for what it is. Roy Jones Jr. is a top rank Timothy Bradley, i.e. Andre Ward, i.e. Terence Crawford type of guy. He's a company man. And see, this is what company men do. They fall in line. Let me say it again. This is what company men do. They fall in line instead of telling you the truth. Because Andre Ward sat here and went against himself and became a hypocrite to sit here and say the same nonsense that Roy Jones is talking about. Terence Crawford has proven himself. Proven himself where? And they keep using this undisputed talk. Undisputed where? Because if you're undisputed at 140 when you're fighting the likes of Hank Lundy, John Molina, Julius Ndongo, you see what I'm saying? Raymondo, Beltran. These are the opponents that Terence Crawford fought. Ricky Burns. The only person that he fought throughout that lineage that gave him, do the stanky leg, do the stanky leg. Let me say it again, do the stanky leg, do the stanky leg. Turned him from a bow-legged individual to a straight individual was your Curious Gamboa. And even he wasn't even his right headspace. You go do the math, you'll see he was dealing with some domestic violence, legal war at the time. But he was still able to give Terence Crawford a stanky leg. That's the only person he fought. And that's his claim to fame at 140. That resume right there. Really, give me an honest assessment of these opponents that I just mentioned to you and what they bring to the table. Because if you can't or you try to, you're going to make me laugh at you. Let me say it again. If you can't or you try to, you're going to make me laugh at you. This man has not fought people that's credible. Then he goes to 147. Who the heck has he fought? A lame duck Jeff Horn. A one-legged Jose Benavidez. A 5-year past his prime Amir Khan. And then he fights Mean Machine. Again, this guy's resume is filled with smoke and mirrors. It's filled with holes, man. That plugs holes and that plugs even more holes. Let me say it again. It's filled with smoke and mirrors and holes that plugs more holes that plugs more holes. So when you listen to Roy Jones Jr., all you're hearing is vitriol and hate coming out of his damn mouth. And I like Roy Jones because he's from damn Florida. That's what people don't understand. Roy Jones Jr. was one of the most exciting fighters to watch. His boxing fundamentals was shit. And it was evident once his physicality and his superiority deteriorated. Because he didn't have the reflexes or the fundamentals that a Floyd Mayweather has. This is why Floyd Mayweather is like the Michael Jordan of boxing. Because him and Michael Jordan, where they weren't the most physical or they weren't the most, gifted in terms of physical abilities, they had the whole package. They had the whole gamut. So even in that interview, when you hear Roy Jones Jr. saying, or when they talk about fighters, when people talk about fighters, they mention Roy Jones before anybody else. Yeah, you're dealing with a lot of casual fans. They don't know boxing. Because the sweet art is to hit and don't get hit. Let me say it again. It's to hit and don't get hit. If they were smart, they would understand the Mayweather style is actually the greatest style ever in boxing because it defines the art of the sweet science, which is hit and don't get hit. But Roy Jones Jr., you can't take it away from him. He's arguably the most exciting right there with Mike Tyson. So now if you're talking about most exciting, that's a fundamentally different argument. But this guy's so caught up in his self-proclaimed ego and his narcissism, class A variation, that he can't sit here and give another fighter credit. And I'm going to tell you the underlying reason, because I done told y'all that before. Errol Spence reminds him of Antonio Tarver. Let me say it again. Errol Spence reminds him of Antonio Tarver because of the way that Errol Spence fought and the way that Antonio Tarver fought him. They weren't trying to sit here and be the most physically dominating fighter. They just kept doing the same thing through authenticity and consistency of applying unlimited pressure. Let me say it again. Of doing the same thing via authenticity and consistency of applying unlimited pressure. That's how Antonio Tarver gave Roy Jones Jr. that fall from grace. That loss right there told you everything you needed to know mentally about Roy Jones Jr. Let me say it again. That loss right there told you everything you needed to know about Roy Jones Jr. That's the truth of the fact of the matter. So be hot and bothered like grits about Antonio Tarver. And when he thinks of Errol Spence, he could see Errol Spence being that Antonio Tarver to his Roy Jones. Well, you can't say that about Terence Bud Crawford, because Terence Bud Crawford don't even have the athleticism of Roy Jones. But he could see that playing out, and he don't like that. Now, I get it. You have an affinity for Terence Bud Crawford, but come out your damn mouth and say it. See, I respect somebody that'll say that they have an affinity for a fighter, or they prefer this fighter because they just preferred the fighter. There's nothing wrong with that. But come out, fix your damn mouth and say it. But to sit here and to have baseless, no merit in your constant criticisms of Errol the Truth Spence, it tells me everything I need to know about you, man. It tells me you can't stand Errol Spence because he's like Antonio Tarver in your dreams. Let me say it again. You can't stand Errol the Truth Spence because he's the Antonio Tarver in your damn dreams. That's the facts, folks. And if people out here that have the true boxing eye test like he knows the sport understood the full weight and the full gravity of what I said, you would have caught it. Roy Jones Jr. is just a hater, man. He hated on Floyd Mayweather because Floyd Mayweather ascended his greatness. He couldn't stand him for it. And he's trying to always take a shot at Floyd Mayweather to say, well, you got to look at boxing differently. You know, it don't matter that he was undefeated. Like, as if that wasn't impressive, that this guy fought 50 guys and they couldn't figure him out. And that there's no blueprint to beat him, but you lost. And when you lost, you started losing on a level that was just so ridiculous. And you showed your mental fortitude and you showed you couldn't bounce back. But yet you want to get on a guy that's 26-0, hasn't lost yet, hasn't proven himself to have anything that resembles any of the losses that you have. But yet you're so highly critical of him. See, Andre Ward, even though he's blind and he's hypocritical, I could understand. I could actually understand his criticisms of Errol Spence. Even though he doesn't really have criticisms, he's just a Terence Bud Crawford fan. He's a Terence Bud Crawford homeboy. So he's speaking from that standpoint. And Andre Ward makes that very clear. But he's undefeated. So if he speaks, there's going to be more validity and more credibility to what he says. As opposed to you, that lost more than 7 times. So again, what is the fundamental problem here? Roy Jones Jr. actually hates everything that Errol Spence stands for, because Errol Spence didn't get embarrassed like him. That's what it boils down to. And Errol Spence is able to have a cachet and is able to become a superstar that Roy Jones Jr. will never become. And when I talk about that, I'm not talking about in terms of how fight fans remember him. I'm talking about the whole package. Errol Spence is the next guy after Floyd Mayweather. Like Richard Schaefer said, we left the Mayweather era and we ushered into the Spence era. Let me say it again. We left the Mayweather era and we ushered into the Spence era. Just because you blew your money, Roy Jones Jr., and you didn't manage your career the right way, and you allowed yourself to be pimped, don't sit here and protrude that level of vitriol on these fighters. And if you are a 3-dimensional thinker, or at minimum a deep thinker out here in these boxing streets, you could see this level of vitriol and this level of hate coming and protruding out of this guy's face, his mouth, and everything that he says. Because anybody that's being real and calling a spade, like Shakur Stevenson, who is there with Terence Bud Crawford, when they ask him about Spence and Crawford, he's legitimately saying, I don't know. That's what he's legitimately saying. Even Andre Ward saying that shit. Even though Terence Bud Crawford is his boy. Because it real recognizes real, man. And people know Spence is that dude. They call him the truth because there's no lies in his damn fist. Let me say it again. They call him the truth because there's no lies in his fist. And if that's the case, why are you hating Roy Jones? Because it makes absolutely no sense and it looks bad on you. Now, that's the cold-hearted, unadulterated cutthroat truth. You can take that one to the He Knows the Sport bank. This is He Knows the Sport. Check it out.